outside before I introduce you. Step outside here. Right, our next speaker, what can I tell you about Malcolm Robinson? Right, I don't know anything, but right now, seriously, Malcolm Robinson has been a researcher of paranormal and UFOs for many, many years. How long, roughly?
35, 40 years.
Yeah, quick answer, 35, 40 years. Right, that's a long time. Right, you can tell he's aging quite well. So he was doing it from a young age. And like many of the speakers that I get to speak at conferences, these are people I respect. I don't invite the people I don't respect. Read through that what you will, but basically the people that impress me are the people I will invite to conferences. So Malcolm Robinson is somebody I respect. He's done a great job. Strange Phenomena Investigations, SPI, was the organisation that he created how long ago now?
1979.
1979, the year of the Livingston event up in Declanlaw in Scotland. Right, so 1979, 21, 37 years, that's a long time. Yeah? So this guy has dedicated his life to try to bring you information about this fascinating subject of UFOs and paranormal. So without further ado, I want you to put your hands together for an excellent speaker, Malcolm Robinson.
Thank you very much, Gary. That's a fantastic introduction, and you never got paid for it either. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and anybody that's not quite sure. My name is Malcolm Robinson, and I'm here today to talk about UFOs over Scotland. Now, first of all, I've got an apology to make. Now, Gary definitely wanted me to speak about this, because normally I don't talk about this, because it's a lot of cases that I've spoken about many, many times before. But as Gary wanted it, Gary's going to get it, so absolutely no problem there. Hands up who have not seen the lecture before. Put your hands up. Well, that's fantastic. That's been living in.
I told you to be on.
Fantastic. Okay, as I say, we've got a lot to go through with here today, and that doesn't help very good at the start. Just bear with me. We'll try to get this back up. And just talk amongst yourselves. We'll wait this slide back. There's always something, isn't it? Right. Okay, a wee brief roundup about SPI, who we are, how we got started, and all the rest of it. Well, first and foremost, as I mentioned a moment ago, the aims of SPI are basically to collect, research and publish accounts relating to most aspects of strange phenomena, and to purposely endeavour to try and come up with some answers to account for what at present eludes us. We at SPI do not hold or express any preconceived ideas as to the nature of the events of which we research. We tend to keep an open mind, and I'm glad to see so many like-minded individuals here today who have that open mind. I have given many lectures all over Europe. I was the first Scots guy to lecture on UFOs in Lachlan, Nevada, and some of the guys here were there back in 2009. Also the first Scots guy to give lectures in Ireland, in Galway in 2004. Also in France, in Strasbourg, back in the day, 2010. And also in Holland, in Utrecht. And it's when they stop asking me, ladies and gentlemen, that's when I'll start to get worried, you know. So thanks, Gary. And I'm one of the few guys on this planet who's been down in the Loch Ness submarine back in 1994. Now, I give lots of different lectures, lots of lectures. One I'm giving in Glasgow in June is all about the best poltergeist cases. The best poltergeist cases. I give one on 9/11 about all the inconsistencies with the evidence. It's not as it seems. I talk about ghosts, poltergeists, you name it. But Loch Ness, yeah, I love my Loch Ness talk. If you ever get a chance to hear me give a talk about that one, please come along to that. But yeah, I was down in Loch Ness submarine back in 1994 to a depth of 800 feet. I would love to tell you more about it, but I obviously haven't got time. I'm the author of 3 books. The 4th one should be coming out fairly soon. It's about Nessie. And like I say, anytime I give a lecture, I always tell you lovely people that I started off sceptical. I started off to say, what a load of rubbish, UFOs and ghosts and poltergeists. Oh, come on. There are no such things. That's like anything else in life. Once you spend nights in haunted houses, and some of the guys know this, I've been slapped by a ghost, I've had my hair pulled by a ghost, I've been kicked. They obviously don't like me, you know. and that, when that happens to you, that's when you come off that proverbial sceptical fence. Because seriously, there's no smoke without fire. I just absolutely bloody well love this subject. It's an amazing subject, as you all do quite rightly here today. And what I want you to look at very carefully is this slide here. And it goes back to what Gary and Ben was saying. What you're allowed to see and what is reality. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you'll agree with me today that the tip of the iceberg as far as UFOs and ghosts and poltergeists go, you only get to know a little bit about it. What's underneath that surface of the ocean? There's so much more that you'll never ever hear about. And I said to someone earlier today that you may have 2 people see a UFO and maybe 6 other people saw it, but the other 6 people won't come forward for fear of ridicule. And that's the sad thing about today's society, is the fear factor, because you get masqueraded in the, and I have, I've been absolutely shot down in flames in the media for my beliefs and bringing witnesses forward, etc. So, you know, and people say, Marky, why did you get involved in the paranormal? No, it was nothing to do with that lovely lady there, Gillian. Well, it might have been, it might have not. It's before that, but she does help bring people into the subject. And so, I don't know how that's like on there. Maybe somebody done that. As you know, Scotland, like any country on this planet, has been touched by the UFO presence. And we're no any difference from anywhere else. And like I say, I mean, I have been asked to ever talk about this. Some of you have heard it before, my apologies, but some of you haven't, a lot of you haven't. So we've got a lot to cover here in this short time span that I have, so we're going to whisk our way through it. Bonnybridge, hands up who's heard of the town of Bonnybridge and UFO sightings. So quite a lot of you there, that's great. And it all started with this, well, never started with, he helped promote it. This fella here, that's Councillor Billy Buchanan. He was elected councillor for the Bonnybridge region. And for those who are not quite sure where Bonnybridge is, it's in the central belt of Scotland, it's just in here. And I'll show you another couple of slides of where that area is just now. For myself, that's Bonnybridge there. You've got Falkirk, Grangemouth, you've got Culross, and you've got Stirling up there. But I lived in the close proximity. I lived very, very close to Bonnybridge. Look, there's a wee place called Tullabuddy, near Alloa, and Bonnybridge and Falkirk, and all these amazing UFO sightings were all over the place. And I lived on the doorstep, which was very, very handy for me. Having said that, if I lived in Aberdeen, I still would have came down, you know, but it was close to where I lived. It was making headlines not only in central Scotland, but then down in England and all over the world. And this is just one of these sensational headlines that you get. Bonnybridge buzzed by UFOs. Another one was the Sunday Express saying the mystery of the UFO capital of Britain. And they've got Councillor Buchanan there. And, you know, we spoke extensively to the press, and I'll mention why in a moment. Now, this is one of the early press reports. We're talking 1993. Town baffled by UFO sightings. That's Councillor Buchanan, just there. And Stirling Observer, which is close to Tullabuddy and Alloa, expert to investigate wave of UFO sightings, referring to me. I'm not an expert. And I don't even claim to be an expert. I'm just a guy similar to yourselves who's just got that interest and wants to know. But suddenly, I mean, I live in Hastings in East Sussex, and I work for the Hastings and St Leonard's Observer, so I know how the press works. And you always want those sensational headlines and stuff, you know. So this was just typical, I should know. And this lady here, oops, let me go back one. Yeah. This lady here, she capitalised on the events of Bonnybridge, all these UFO sightings. She ran a B&B on the moors, these moors behind the town of Bonnybridge, and she invited people from all over the world, because they were coming from France, Belgium, Switzerland, to visit this small Scottish town, and they needed accommodation, of course. So she capitalised that and says, well, you can view the terrain from my lovely B&B, and seriously folks, it was a lovely wee place, it really was, to view anything in the Stirlingshire skies. We'll come to the sightings in a moment. I've mentioned it made headlines all over the world. This is from the Arabic world, the Bonnybridge UFO sightings. And yeah, it was going all over the place. We had a Dutch team come over, the journalist and the media, and the nice guy, a television guy, he started to do an interview with me, and he was very nice. And as soon as that red light of the camera went on, Mr. Robinson, UFOs, a load of rubbish, don't you think? And he was looking for a reaction for me. He was looking for me to go, oh. I just calmly said, no, that's your matter of opinion. You know, obviously, that's your opinion. And, well, before we look at these letters briefly, just the sighting started in November 1992 when I heard a radio show called, it was Falkirk Radio, and they were telling their listeners about the UFO sightings in Bonnybridge. And on that show was a guy called, as I showed you earlier, Councillor Billy Buchanan. And he was telling the listeners about these wave of UFO sightings above the town, these orbs of light, these triangular shapes, coming down over fields, etc. And I was listening to this. So I got in touch with the radio station, mentioned who I was, and Billy was so pleased that somebody locally was there to help him try and collate and find out what was going on. Because Billy was elected to serve the people of Bonnybridge, and he did not in a million years expect to get UFOs, and we green men or whatever you want to call them. He was expecting just social issues, things with housing, etc. But suddenly, people's banging on his doors. You must do something. What's going on? What the bloody hell is going on here? So when I came involved and helped him, he was so happy. In any investigation, any investigator, you must find out what is going on. And that you check with the local airports, the national airports, and the local flying clubs to find out if there were any air activity flying over that particular region at that particular time. Letters from myself were sent to many people. This is from the Ministry of Defence. Let me go back that one there. From Nick Pope. This is in the days before I knew him, 1993. And he's saying that I'm aware from other UFO researchers that there has been a wave of UFO sightings centred on the town of Bonnybridge. But the Ministry of Defence has received no reports from this area. Is that true, or is it not true? Maybe he's telling the truth. But that was one of the letters there. And this one, we did a lot of sky watches. Sky watches are wonderful things to participate in. I'm sure a lot of you lovely people have been on them in Warminster and Bonnybridge, wherever. And it just takes you out there to look at the sky. You see your normal aircraft, you see your normal satellites, and sometimes it's all the worthwhile when you see something that shouldn't be there. And that's why it's so great to do that. In fact, I got contacted by a TV company just yesterday, looking to go on a sky watch with people with caravans. So everybody's got a caravan, and they're looking for somebody to go out on a sky watch. It's got to be with caravans. This show's to do with caravans, that's another story. But yeah, I mean, we've taken so many people to the moors at Bonnybridge, and like I say, we've seen balls of light coming down from the sky. We've seen strange objects flying slowly and silently across the Bonnybridge skies. These have been filmed, have been photographed, have been sent to the Ministry of Defence, etc. And nothing's come forward from that. We've had the Japanese television come down. They came over to Bonnybridge. That's me when I had a silly looking moustache back in the day. This is two of the cameramen, and they had heard, even from Japan, they had heard about the sightings. And they came over to do a documentary about the sightings in this town. Now this is a Sloggett family, and they're recreating something that happened on that little stretch of road there. And the story goes that they were walking, that's the mother, the son and the daughter, along this little road which sits high on the moors above the town of Bonnybridge. And suddenly what happened was, there was this big blue ball of light descended from the sky and sat in this farmer's field and started to vibrate. And this fence here, you can't see it so well on the slide, but there's a little wire fence here, there's sheep and cattle in that field, started to vibrate very violently. And at that, it just took off, and they were gone. They were running down that road. And can you imagine? Suddenly you're just out for a nighttime walk, and then you're catapulted into the twilight zone. What is going on? And yeah, the object just silently rose up into the sky and disappeared as well. Junichi Yao, he always wore this white jacket. He did documentaries in Mexico, all over the world. He's interviewing Craig Morrison, who is one of the youngest UFO witnesses of the Bonnie Bridge area. And go back to this. He saw a strange craft hovering above this house over there. He was out playing with his friends, and he saw this triangular-shaped craft appearing above that rooftop and then just suddenly zipping off into the sky. So we're collecting all these stories for the Japanese TV. That was the producer. She gave me a hard time. She was very nippy, she was very demanding, and I just couldn't get, she was always in my ear, do this, Mark, do this. And it's quite frustrating. That's some of the Japanese crew. That's me, and a birthday cake that we presented to the Japanese camera crew, coming all the way from Bonnie Bridge. It was written in Japanese, something like "Welcome to Bonnie Bridge, our Japanese friends." And that's Councillor Buchanan there with the camera, and some other people that we know. Some of the cases I'd love to tell you now about the Bonnie Bridge area, I'd be rude not to, is the Freddie France case, which is a very, very perplexing case, very interesting one, this. Now this is Freddie France here and his two young sons, and the story goes that, well, let me show you the map. So again, it's in the central belt of Scotland, it's in the main area, and he was driving, he was going to collect his wife from the bingo, eyes down, and, oops, I'll go back a bit, and from Denny. He lived in a wee place called Denny, which again is near Falkirk in Bonnie Bridge, and he was going to Stirling, the town of Stirling, to pick up his wife from the bingo, and as he travelled along the road, his two young sons, this is not his car, it's a recreation, right? He's not that posh, he's not that, got that much money. It's a recreation that I've done on PowerPoint, so it's not his car. Now, as he was driving along this road, it was getting dark, and suddenly his two young sons who were in the back seat of the car, Dad, what's that? And they looked out and he saw this, like an upside down pudding plate, an upside down hat or something, slowly moving across the field. Then it stopped. It had three bright lights on its underside. And then what happened next was even more bizarre, even more crazy, because suddenly what resembled this fog bank, this instantaneous fog bank, just appeared in front of the car there, and it was sharply defined. It wasn't fuzzy, it was sharply defined, just like that. Now, rather than stop the car and go back, he just decided to go through this fog bank, and nothing happened. I bet you're waiting for what happened next. What happened was that the fog bank disappeared, and he just shot off to the destination of Stirling, collected his wife, and at that time, when back in the early 90s, I advocated the use of hypnosis, because I honestly feel that hypnosis is a tool to find out what any hidden subconscious recall of any nasty event. Now, people can lie, they can confabulate under hypnosis, as Euphoria will tell you. That's the British UFO Research Association. But I did ask him who wanted to go through hypnosis, and he says, no, Malcolm, I don't want to know any more about that. There is more to all these wee stories, but I've got a lot to tell you, lovely people. This is a family. Again, you've got Junichi Yao from Japan, his film crew, and the story behind this slide is that the son of that mother and father came into the house. Mum, there's a car in the sky. A car in what? There's a car in the sky. So they rushed out the house to appease the wee boy, you know, the son. And sure enough, there's this box-like thing in the sky. And again, that's part and parcel of the many bizarre shapes that was appearing in the Bonnie Bridge skies back in the day. This is another witness, Ray Prosek, been interviewed at the Castlecarry Viaduct. Another interesting case, this one, and this is what happened. He was travelling along this road in the Bonnie Bridge region, and this is the Castlecarry Viaduct there, and suddenly became aware of this. First of all, it was a large black triangular craft, singular craft at the time, followed by another one, who met almost point to point. Whoa, what the hell is this? Is this an aircraft? Is this a helicopter? What's going on here? Now, I will tell you, and my colleagues will tell you, that the vast majority of UFO reports, 95%, easily explained. Absolutely. I've said it many times. The 5% it remained, 3% could be our own black budget technology. Gary mentioned about some of the aircraft that was flying in the skies before the public knew about it. The stealth aircraft was flying for 10 years before the American public says, that's ours. And that gave rise to many false UFO reports. Anyway, get back to the plot. I was diversifying. He's driving along the road here, and whoa, what the hell is this? So he slowed down, and then of course there were cars coming up from the back there, and they're all peeping his horn. And suddenly what happened was that one of them just lifted up into the sky, followed by the other one lifting up into the sky, and both were gone. And to this day he doesn't know what's going on. 1993 we held our first of a few conferences. This one was in a hotel in Bonnybridge, and that was at the height. We asked the people through the Falkirk Herald, anybody seen a UFO? You want to come to this hotel and tell us your story? I gave a lecture as well as some other guys there, and it was absolutely packed. It really was. It was crazy. And then the other night was back in 1994, which was in Falkirk Town Hall. We had over 800 people in Falkirk Town Hall, packed to the gunnels, like sardines. You couldn't sit down, they were sitting on top of each other. People up the aisles, health and safety was right well out the window. And 200 people couldn't get in. So that is how big Bonnybridge was at that time. We talk about Warminster, and Warminster, the English Bonnybridge, was equally a massive, massive story in its day. Still get sightings, but not as much as the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So yeah, it was amazing, and that was just Billy Buchanan, myself, with that daft moustache. Some guys from the rock band CE4. Anybody heard the musical group CE4? Put your hands up. I know you guys have. What they do is they write and perform songs about UFOs where I talk about it and write about it. They sing songs about it. They've got alien grey dummies on stage, green lights sitting off the dummies, dry ice. Brilliant. It's a little bit like Genesis and Pink Floydish. It's fantastic. Check them out, CE4, ceiv.co.uk. That's their website. And did I really keep that slide in? That's me from a freeze frame of Scottish television. They followed us on to a skywatch on the hills at Bonnybridge, and again there were so many people turned up to that skywatch. This is me for German television who came over, and this was nowhere near Bonnybridge. This is in a region called the Ochil Hills near Main Street, Blackmannon. And it was pouring rain and had me standing talking about it as if it was Bonnybridge. It wasn't. Pouring rain, so it was a wee bit silly, that one. Yeah. This was when we did a live broadcast for the BBC, and prior to this going out live, this presenter says, Malcolm, don't stand your legs apart, stand your legs together. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, go live. That's what I do. Nobody tells me what to do. She just gave me this look. I told you not to do that. And so we also sent a letter, well, from Billy Buchanan sent a letter to David Cameron, and I'll read you bits of this. We as a nation are well aware of the burden of responsibility that rests on your shoulders and the decisions that have to be taken. The continuous deaths of our soldiers in Afghanistan weighs heavy on all our minds, and to this end, this should be your #1 priority. The global financial crisis and the measures your government have to take to try and stabilise Britain's economy shows clearly how difficult life is going to be for all of us. Therefore, it might seem that what I'm about to say is meaningless in light of all these problems. I have outlined the concerns, but the issue I ask you is to clarify is of national importance. During your election, David Cameron, at a forum in Tynemouth, north of Tyneside, you were open and frank about discussions on UFOs and alien life, and you were convinced that aliens have been here. You agreed that the British people had the right to know, and if you became Prime Minister, you would lift the veil of secrecy and give the people you represent the truth. That's all we ask. All we ask is the truth. Are you now going to honour this commitment? But the people of my area, Bonnybridge, have, as I have been ridiculed for years because of this phenomenon. Prime Minister, I urge you to end the secrecy and let us know the truth. Well, you know that didn't happen. He did utter that statement in the Time Out, but he never lifted any veil of secrecy. But did we really expect that he would? This is one that I sent to the Prime Minister again. This is 2010. I wrote to the Prime Minister asking him to come to Scotland, look at the files we've got. Come on, we elected you as the Prime Minister. Do your duty. Come to Scotland, see what we're talking about. Dear Mr Robinson, I am writing on behalf of the Prime Minister to thank you for your letter of 14th May. Mr Cameron is most grateful for the time and trouble you have taken to get in touch. I've been asked to forward your letter to the Ministry of Defence, blah blah blah, and it's a tired old statement. I've been dealing with the Ministry of Defence for many years, and a lot of researchers in this room will tell you that all they say, oh, well, as these objects do not constitute a threat to the defence of the United Kingdom, we will not seek to open up any government inquiry. Do you believe that? Do you think that's... So, back in 2010, we took a petition to down. So if they were not going to come to us, we were going to go to them. So in 2010, myself and John Wickham from UFORA, who's the chairman of the British UFO Research Association, and Councillor Buchanan, we were right down to the gates down the street to carry this petition signed by many hundreds of people from the Bonnie Bridge area. We never actually got in the door, sadly, but they didn't know we were coming. It wasn't a case they didn't know, and this is Councillor Buchanan explaining to this lovely fine gentleman, pillar of justice, possibly, that this is why we're here. And again, just a couple of other photographs. That's me with my car sticker. UFOs are real. The government doesn't exist. So I mean, you've got to have a bit of a laugh, you know. And so that was quite cool. Now, Billy Buchanan and myself have been accused of hyping up the Bonnie Bridge sightings. If it wasn't for Malcolm and if it wasn't for Billy, we wouldn't have heard about the Bonnie Bridge case. I don't think that's true. We can only tell it as it is. Okay, Billy is a bit of a, he's a character, he's a card, as they say, because he just wants to help the people of his constituency. He wants to have a UFO park, a UFO theme park, where you can go in. It's like a museum and see all the pictures on the wall and interact, press buttons. There's nothing the matter with that. But he has been accused that he's just trying to hype it all up and all the rest of it. A few years ago, a couple of years ago, there was a massive Scottish Paranormal Festival organised, and myself, Ellis Taylor, Steve Mera and Dave Hodgin, I took them and about 50 people up to the moors at Bonnie Bridge. And in part it was okay, the sky was clear, in this typical Scottish weather, the clouds came in and it rained, and we never saw anything, unfortunately, but that's the nature of sky watches. But we had a jolly good time, shall we say, and not one drop of alcohol was consumed in the making of that slide. And that night. This guy here is the mayor of Roswell, New Mexico. You've all heard of Roswell. I haven't, but you have. And Billy was over there to twin Roswell and Bonnie Bridge. You always get these twinning of towns and stuff. And he did manage it, but it's not came to fruition yet. It's not like there's not a sign, Bonnie Bridge, twin with Roswell. We don't have that yet. So hopefully one day soon we will get it. But that's him there shaking hands with the mayor of Roswell. He's also met Princess Anne, and I hope he wasn't telling her a dirty joke, but he certainly got something to smile about, you know. I'd like to think he was trying to tell her about UFOs over Bonnie Bridge, but he certainly seemed shocked, this fella here. Oh, what did you just say? What, my goodness me. I mentioned about CE4, they write and perform songs. This is one of their wee stage aliens. This is Bonnie Bridge town centre kind of thing, the main street, sorry. This is a wee hill, it's on Bonnie Bridge. And yeah, it's what's going on. Obviously I've got so much to say that anybody who wants to find out any more about Bonnie Bridge, speak to me in the bar or outside. As long as you buy me a pint, I'll talk to you all night. People say, well, were there any UFOs before 1992, Malcolm? Yes. Oh yes. I was dealing even before Councillor Buchanan in 1982. I was dealing with a lady, we call her a repeater witness. That's a woman or a gentleman who sees UFOs more than any other person on a regular basis. And she saw lots of stuff. And I never even knew Councillor Buchanan then. So UFOs like Warminster were in the skies years and years. Why? Why? We can ask ourselves why all day. So what do you think about Bonnie Bridge before we move on to other stuff? I think it's real. I definitely think we're dealing with something real, something tangible, something not military. We have recognised people who have seen these objects in the sky from the military themselves, the Air Force pilots. They went, no, it's not ours. So I think we have a recognisable phenomenon occurring in the Scottish skies, which, yeah, I will say it's not of this earth. So, you know, take it that what you will. Again, apologies for those who have heard these stories. This is probably one of Scotland's biggest cases. Certainly was the case that really kicked me in the backside and said, Malcolm, you really need to get into this subject, son. This is amazing. I had that desire as a wee boy growing up in Scotland. I had this fascination for the ghost train and things like that. I was fascinated going through the wee things fall on your face and UFOs. And most people would maybe grow out of that, but not me. I just wanted to soak it up and energise myself. So when I heard about this case, I had to get involved, and I was, obviously, the guy's called Robert Taylor, and I know a lot of you have heard about it, but who hasn't heard about the Livingston case? Shall we put your hands up, who hasn't heard about it? Oh my goodness, though. Right, okay. For those who haven't, basically it occurred again in the central belt of Scotland, which is, that's not to say UFOs do not appear in the Highlands. My second book, UFO Case Files Scotland 2, is all about UFOs up from the border region right up to Wick, Thurso in the Highlands. So UFOs are all over. But that's the area that occurred there, and it's between the towns of Livingston, Broxburn and Edinburgh. You've got Armadale, Bathgate and Whitburn there as well. This is a bird's eye view looking down on the actual location area of the definite incident. You've got the busy M8 motorway there, M8 motorway. What a big UFO's been seen near a motorway. Yes, indeed it was. And Robert Taylor lived in the village of Deans, which is a small village near Livingston, Newtown, and you can see Deckman Woods at the top there in the skyline. That's the Deckman area there. He was employed by the Livingston Development Corporation in the Forestry Department, and his job was to ensure that no cattle or sheep strayed into the woods and got lost. That was part of his job. But on the morning of November the 9th, 1979, doing his normal job, it was catapulted into the twilight zone. He didn't want this to happen to him. He alighted from his truck, and well, this is stills from a TV show. I think it's Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World one, I think it is, which shows, this is a recreation of course, Bob leaving his pickup truck, accompanied by his Irish red setter dog Lara, who was also to experience this bizarre phenomenon. And when he got off, when he alighted from his truck, he parked it further back up, he walked down this forestry path, and it was at the end of that forestry path that what he saw absolutely blew him away. He just couldn't believe it. He's just a normal guy. He's not interested in these UFOs, these strange things in the sky. You know, he's not. Again, it's a recreation on PowerPoint. I do love PowerPoint. I spend many an hour whiling away on the anyway, this is a drop down on the area. This is Robert Taylor here, and this is why I love PowerPoint. You can do things like this, you see. He was walking up this forestry path, and suddenly he saw this dome-shaped object which was disappearing and then appearing, solidifying, desolidifying, and whoa, what the bloody hell is this? So he stood looking at this craft, and he just couldn't believe what he saw. Now, what he saw was similar to this without the portholes. The police sketch drew shaded kind of circles. Another artist thought it was portholes, but they were not. So he saw this dome-shaped object with a flange going around the circumference with cross-like projections sticking up from the flange. And he's looking at this, he's whoa, and his dog's barking. And then suddenly, as you can see from this slide, what resembled 2 Second World War sea mines dropped from beneath this object and contacted the earth and started rolling across the grass, making these strange sucking or plopping noises as it rolled. He's like, oh, what's going on here? And you know, he was just total shock. This is a sketch done by Dave Sankey, a lovely, lovely guy, great artist who did this sketch. As I said, forget about that because these windows were not there. He says the texture of the object reminded him like emery paper. You know that emery paper you get to sand things? He says that's what the surface was like. Anyway, these 2 little things dropped down and rolled across the grass towards Bob, and he was very agitated. Like I say, parts of this object was disappearing. You could see the young trees in the background, and it was solidifying, which is part and parcel of it. And these are the two spears coming down. Now, suddenly these spears stopped in front of him and projected these rod-like projections towards his hips and pulled him very, very forcibly towards this bigger object. And at that point, he remembers, before he lost consciousness, a horrible burning smell, this pervading burning, like burning brake linings that pervade all over the area, and they're like a swishing sound, as if you had a cane and you swished it, and then he just, boom, he lost consciousness. That's a nice ringtone, by the way. I like that. And when he regained consciousness, the bigger object was gone, the smaller objects were gone, and they were all 40 holes, marks, impressions in the grass. He's worked his woods for many, many years. He's never seen marks like this in the grass before. What's going on? So this is a shot I took a couple of years ago. I was working with another film crew with this, and it's heavily overgrown now. This is just one angled shot, obviously. This is the area in question. They've now got a stone cairn in there, which I'll speak about in a moment, but it's heavily overgrown. And these trees were just small, small little trees back in '79. I was there the following day, by the way. I think I've got slides here about it. And there were also these track-like impressions on the grass as well. Now, the thing was that the marks and holes in the grass did not go into the soil. It didn't go into the earth. They only went into the grass. And so if you're thinking it's a heavier than air object, then you would imagine a heavier than air object just depressing into the soil and leaving indentations. But that was not the case. It was just in the grass. The skeptics have quite rightly said, it was just these dogs. What? It was just these dogs going around the area, just nuzzling the grass and trying to make its master, possibly. Because I'm like Gary, you never ever throw the baby out with the bathwater and all that saying, because you never know. But he said these marks were not there. The police who became involved, they checked the whole woods and there were no similar marks anywhere else in the wooded area. So how did they get there? Was it due to this object? I was there the following day. The snow had fallen, and Martin Keaton was there and Andy Collins was there from another group, and we had a good chat about it, and we dug up this turf. They were taking soil samples and plaster of Paris moulds of the indentations. This is you can't see it so well in the slide, it's a triangular indentation, but yeah, the police became involved. I do have a lot of videos here, but we'll have to maybe show them later. I interviewed the police because what happened was, I'll miss the story here. When Bob regained consciousness, the object was gone. He went to his truck, he tried to radio base with the hands, but he couldn't talk. So he put the thing down, then he reversed the truck into a ditch. And he had to stagger home to his home in Deans. And his wife saw him and said, "What the bloody hell's happened to him?" "Yeah." His clothes were all dirty and torn and that. And he said those immortal words, "I've been attacked." He'd been attacked? Attacked by what? By a spaceship. That was his words. He's just a normal guy, he couldn't think anything else. "Oh, don't be silly, there's no such thing as a spaceship," she said. And anyway, his boss, Malcolm Drummond, came down and he knew Bob would never ever make up a tall tale like that. Even to get a half day off your work, never mind a full day. And so they called the police because it was an assault. It was an assault by a person or persons unknown. I've interviewed some of the police officers on the case. This guy, he took it very, very seriously. And of course we have the trousers now. Anybody who knows me knows I can't talk about this case without showing you the trousers. So just bear with me. Yes, you've all seen them before. Right, okay, for those who haven't, when Malcolm gives a talk, he always brings these. These, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and I'm not quite sure, are the actual trousers that Robert Taylor wore on that eventful day in the shoulder rips on the left leg there, and also as corresponding rips, slightly similar there on that leg. And I'll pass them around the room. I must get them back as I'm watching you. And they are heavy duty trousers. And if you want to look at them, pass them around there. And I'll talk to you more of that. Don't lose them mind. Now, these were investigated by Lester Knibb, who was a forensic scientist at Bathgate Police Station. Excuse me, I've just got over a cold and my voice is going a bit. And he said, as you can read here, the damage could have been caused in the way the witness said, i.e. it was getting pulled in an upwards manner. But it would require something mechanical. It was not something caused by an electric shock or a bolt of lightning. Now that's the police. That's the guy who studies criminal cases, for goodness sake. And this is what he said. And this is being examined there. They did a thorough test. It was not, these rips were not caused by any jagged material on the forest floor like sharp twigs or stones or barbed wire fencing. There were no barbed wire fencing in that locality. And so what caused them? And that's just the rips on that. So it would have taken some considerable force to pull this up. And this is consistent with Robert's testimony. Very quickly, this is what Helen Walters saw on her commemoration day. The Livingston Development Corporation put a big stone cairn there. And Helen Walters is a lovely psychic. I love psychic phenomena. That's where my true heart lies, as a paranormal. And she was standing looking into the woods where the Livingston event had happened. And Helen, what are you doing? What? What are you doing looking at the woods? Oh, don't you see them, Malcolm? What? See what? Oh, look, there's a big red ball moving in and out the trees. And if you stare hard enough, Malcolm, you can see a grey alien's face in the shape of, in the woods as well. And I couldn't see that. As I say, I've been psychic, I've been slapped by a ghost and all the rest of it, but I never saw that. And maybe it's like some people are more psychically aware, psychically attuned. You could have 5 people in a haunted house and only 2 will see something and the others will go, well, I can't see anything. It's like a highly tuned radio. Not so much the radios you get these days, they're digital, but the old radios with the dial, you turn and you turn, oh, that's good, radio 1. So you've got the frequency. And maybe some people are more psychically aware to get that, but I couldn't see it. So what did I think happened with Livingston? Most of you know what I think. I think the guy's an absolute gem. I think the guy's telling the truth. He definitely interacted with something not of this world. I'm absolutely sure of it. And it doesn't embarrass me in front of you lovely people to say so. I mean, I'll go further than that, and I honestly believe personally that my research over 40 years or so, since I was a wee boy and latterly, that we are indeed dealing with something real, something tangible, like I said a moment ago, and it's not of this world. Why? Well, why don't they come more often in Malcolm? Why don't we see them in the White House long enough? We could deliberate that point till the cows come home. I've got my own idea, but not got time for it just now. Sadly, Robert Taylor passed away, God bless him, back in 2007, and he took that, the man that really knows, really knows what happened that eventful day is, of course, Robert Taylor. When we speak about UFO abductions, I'm aware of the many UFO abductions coming from all parts of the world, but I have never personally investigated them. I've never personally, so nice stories. But all that was about to change back in the early 1990s when 2 guys came to my attention and says, we need help, you must help us. So again, my apologies for those people who are aware of this case, but for those who are not, it's probably one of Scotland's biggest UFO cases, abduction cases ever. Hands up who haven't heard of the A70 case. There's a fair few. Oh, thank you. Good. I'm happy to talk about it. It happened to 2 guys, Colin Wright and Gary Wood here, and they were the principal witnesses in this case. And like I say, it's one of the biggest cases in Scotland. So what happened? What physically happened then to these guys? Okay, let's talk about it. Let's have a look at the map. Again, we're near enough in the central belt. The A70 is there, and this central belt of Scotland as well. And yeah, just off from Edinburgh. If we go back and look at this other map, I don't know if we've got a circle now. Anyway, this is Edinburgh here. This little A, this pointer here is from, that is actually the A70 as it leaves, built up the city of Edinburgh down to Tarbrax, this small village that we're going to. This is Gary Wood. It's outside my caravan office in Alloa, in Blackmanningshire. When I lived in Alloa, I had this lovely caravan office. It was full of books and maps and sightings and charts of UFOs. It was like Mulder's office. It was lovely. I do miss it. Right, this is a top view, aerial view of the location where the incident occurred. I think I've got a circle here. Down here is the Harper Rig Reservoir. Now, a lot of UFO sightings have been seen above and near reservoirs. Why? We don't know. We really don't know. Sometimes I've seen water being taken up. I don't know, it's so bizarre. If we're dealing with a technological, superior, advanced culture coming to this planet, if we are, surely they don't need water, they don't need to be inspecting the ground, they don't need to be doing this, or do they? Who knows? You know, it's like a caveman looking out of his cave and seeing a rainbow. Is that a UFO? What's that? Maybe it's incomprehensible. This is another map, or sorry, this picture of the road. I'll give you the story in a moment. This is to show you the area in question. When I do these talks, I've got to introduce new slides. This is again, it's coming up to a blind bend, or a bend as you can see there. And this is where the object was seen, above this locality here, above on the nap of this kind of bend, and there. And this is it at night. So they're driving up here. Right, let's go back. Okay, so they had left the built-up city of Edinburgh on an August evening back in 1992 to go to a little village called Tabrax in West Lothian. And they were there to take a satellite system to some friends. They had no interest in UFOs. They've heard about it, yes, absolutely. But as they were driving down this road, once they left Edinburgh, there were fields on either side, you know, bordered by fields. And suddenly Colin, who was in the passenger seat, says, Gary, what's that? What's that? And this is what they saw, because further down the road, they saw this black two-tiered disc-shaped object hovering silently, motionlessly, above the road, casting this sparkling silver effect down. And they both knew straight away this wasn't a conventional aircraft or a helicopter. This is like something I've never seen before. What the bloody hell's going on here? Rather again than stop the car and go back, they decided the best means to get out there is to go underneath this. And like I say, I've said it before, say this is a UFO, this is a car. As the car was directly underneath this object, this shimmering effect came zapping down and hit the car very violently. And at that point, both men were catapulted into total and inky blackness. They couldn't see their hands in front of their face, they couldn't see the dashboard of the car, they couldn't see, where the bloody hell are we? Where are we? Seconds later, or maybe, we don't know, they regained their sight, the car was shuddering violently on the road. They went to their destination in Tabrax, knocked on the occupant's door. Oh, you'll never guess what we just saw. Hey, by the way, where have you been? Never mind where we've been. No way, you're an hour and a half late. The journey should only have taken them 30 minutes. So that night and subsequent nights, I'm just going to see, they found scars on their body that previously were not there. Scoop-like mark scars. Anybody who's involved with the UFO abduction research will know that this is quite common in certain cases of abduction. They found these scars on their body that previously were not there. And guys, surely this cannot be one of these crazy UFO stories. Or can it? Well, what's going on here? So, that night and subsequent nights, both witnesses had strange dreams, these small grey creatures coming into their dream world. Generally, I'm probably talking to the converted here, but they're 3.5 to 4 feet tall, childlike body, large pear-shaped heads, black inky almond-shaped eyes, no sign of any genitalia, sometimes bluey, grey, translucent. Maybe some of you have seen them in this room, maybe. So they had all these dreams, and like I said, they had these strange scars, and he says, well, is this one of these strange UFO stories? So he went to his local library and picked out a book by Jenny Randalls, which contained the only Scottish group at that time was ourselves. Gary got in touch with me, and I invited him to my home in Tullabody, and asked him, I did advocate hypnosis, and I says, Gary, do you want to go into hypnosis? He says, Malcolm, by Christ, we'll do anything. We need to know what happened. Even our wives don't believe us. For God's sake, if hypnosis gives us the answer, then yeah, let's do it. And this is one of the typical UFO UFO sighting account forms that we ask our witnesses to fill in for us, or part of it. It gives us an opportunity for them to draw what they saw, the colours, and give us some more information, and and describe in detail, etc., what they saw. Very, very helpful to guys like myself and my fellow colleagues up and down the UK. And this is a painting done by a guy called Bill Burt, is it? Yeah, Bill Burt. But I'll come to the explanation of that in a moment. Yeah, okay, so let's go back to that actually. So what happened was that under hypnosis, a typical abduction scenario unfolded, right? This is under hypnosis. Now, conscious recall was only ever of seeing these objects, or this object, I should say. Under hypnosis, they claimed that the car was stopped. They were taken forcibly out of this car by these several small grey beings. That sounds like Hollywood, it sounds like Steven Spielberg. But this is what they're telling us. And they were taken on board this object and independently taken to different parts of this object, and certain things were done to the person. This is Colin Wright's drawings. Now, nobody's a great drawer. I couldn't draw for toffee. You know, if you asked me to draw a man, I'd be a stickman. So bear with us when, you know, they're trying to recreate what they saw. What was very unusual was this wee guy had a heart-shaped head and a green, yellow and red indentations under his eyes. I've never heard of that before. Never heard of that before. Yes, admittedly, one of them was like E.T. Was it E.T.? Yeah, and they said, look, I can only tell you what we saw. There was a surgical instrument dropped down from the ceiling, and this little needle went into Colin's eye, to the side of his eye, and under hypnosis, that guy was screaming his heart out. He was absolutely screaming. Even his eye was watering. And they mentioned this as like, look, stare at him, stare at him. Look, how many fingers? How many? Oh, 3 fingers. With nodules and this metallic chair, etc. And this is one of the creatures drawn by. And I noticed that they had a kind of perforated necks extending onto their chest rather than going into their body, extending onto their chest. So these are all things that you look at from worldwide cases to see if anything is similar in Mexico or Portugal or whatever. Colin found himself encased in this, like if you know a man's cigar tube, those big fancy cigar tubes, so imagine a big one about 6, 7, 8 feet tall in glass or perspex. Colin says he found himself naked, strapped inside there, and all around him, he couldn't move, but all around him were similar containers with other naked males and females in this environment. And there was some kind of mist was billowing around there, and he was so terrified that he was burst out crying, and you know, he really was shocked. And coming up next to that cylinder container was this device. It rose up from the floor several feet, stopped, and started spinning around like that. Purpose? Who knows? Who knows what purpose that had? Do we, you know? We don't know. This is another illustration done by Dave Sankey, because whilst he was in this glass container, whatever, he saw this tall, there were taller ones as well, about 7 feet tall, as well as the small 3.5 ones. He saw a tall grey alien, call what you will, in the corridor. And Gary also saw this lens-shaped device in this free-floating in this room, and this grey arm fell, absolutely fell on his chest, and it came right out of hypnosis. And I'll tell you what, I got a fright at that point as well, because we were so engrossed in the tale he was telling, and it suddenly just jumped out of hypnosis, and it was gone. Again, another illustration by Dave Sankey of this weird device that was up in the ceiling. Purpose? Moving? We don't know. We don't know what was going on there. And just another illustration done by Dave Sankey of this. This being's got 4 fingers. Dave should have put 3, but it actually had, it's got 4 there. And as I say, they were completely naked in an environment that they didn't want to be in. And Gary says that although they were small grey creatures, he did see one of these wee guys, and he says he was very, very scared of it. For some reason, whatever this was given out was very bad vibes that Gary was getting from this guy. And he says, Malcolm, look, I'm going to tell you as it is. I was lying on this flat raised table, and suddenly it was like a pool of liquid shaving gel. The gentleman used for the face for shaving was like bubbling up on the floor, and out of this came this small creature. I says, Gary, you've drawn ribs on it. Was it ribs? No, it wasn't ribs, Malcolm. What was it? What are you drawing there? Heavy folds of skin. And again, this is other wee things. I've never heard it in any other abduction case before. And this is again another illustration done by Dave Sankey of this liquid pool of gel in which one of these wee creatures rose up. What's going on? This is why this subject is so bizarre, so fascinating, so amazing to me and everybody sitting here. Yes, there may be skeptics in the audience today, and I'm still a skeptic. Even when I go on a case, you've got to convince me that something real and tangible is happening. By Christ, you better convince me. because I'm still sceptical. Even though I believe in life after death, and I've seen so much good evidence about life after death, that you've still got to convince me. And that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. Anyway, I've digressed again as usual. Gary's lying on his bed and this can-shaped device rose up from the floor. What was its purpose? What's going on? He's lying on this bed, he can't move, and suddenly this device lifted up and started spinning around in his direction. Is it scanning him? Is it doing anything strange? This one here is probably one of the most famous drawings done by Gary. He's again lying on this table. There's three small creatures there. One's like holding a pendulum-like object, moving up and down his body. And he says, "Oh, Malcolm, I don't know whether to tell you this or not. What did Gary tell me?" Gary Heseltine says it's the smallest things. It's the smallest things that mean the bloody world. Never mind the big things. Tell me, Gary, what is it? Well, I couldn't move my body, but when I looked down, I just could see the corner of my eye, this naked female. And she had her knees up under her chin, and she had her arms round her knees. She had shaggy perm hair, and she turned very, very slowly towards me, and I could see tears running down her eyes. And he says, "Malcolm, if ever I saw her again, I'll instantly recognise her." And that's the sad thing about these UFO abductions, is they see other people on board these craft. I know it sounds bizarre, etc., but this is why. I'm going to quickly go through this, and I'm going to finish on a couple of questions. How long have I got, Gary?
You've still got 23 minutes.
Well, that's all right, that's fine. Good stuff. So what do I think happened in the A70? Well, again, my interaction with these two guys, knowing them as, well, didn't know them beforehand, but knowing them as I do, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a professor, I'm not nobody special, but you do get an affinity with people when they're telling you the truth. And having said that, people can lie. People can lie in their lie detector tests. We know that. That's not to say Travis Walton and the other people, members of the crew, didn't lie. I believe that's a true story, but they passed flying colours. Anyway, I do believe, I have to keep digressing. I do believe in the validity of that case. A couple of quick photographic cases before I finish on one of Scotland's most bizarre cases. Again, Central Belt, Pullman Reservoir, and this happened near the BP plant at Grangemouth, which has been in the news recently. These two guys were up at Pullman Reservoir to take a photograph of this petrochemical plant at night as it burns off gas flares. And it was for a project they were doing at school. And as they were there, they became aware of this red ball of light, which was in the vicinity of the Oakle Hills, which is near where I used to live. That's Oakle Hills there. Again, it's a recreation, of course, done on PowerPoint. And as they saw, "What's that in the distance there on the Oakle Hills? What is that? Is that a helicopter line? What is that?" And he suddenly did this. It just quickly moved across the sky. And then here it's again in the map. So they are round here, and this is what happened again. So this object quickly moved to their direction in a matter of seconds. It was right above their head. Right above their head. So they looked up, and here's this big circular object. What the hell is this? So the guy had to physically bend over backwards, and this photograph was taken, some of you, a lot of you may have seen it, of the underside of this object. Admittedly, there's nothing in the sky, which would have helped, but sky's dark. Could be taken anywhere, the skeptics say, but you can see a concave bottom, let me go back a touch, concave bottom, and it's thrown out light. What was this object? It just suddenly vanished, took off at great speed. We did the normal checks with the military, with the airports, with the police, and nothing was flying in that area at the time. This other one is a Craigluska Reservoir. This is again in the Central Belt near Dunfermline. The gentleman here was taking photographs of this lovely reservoir to paint. I don't know why he didn't take his easel and do some paintings from the easel, but he wanted to photograph it. I'm going quick now because I want to finish on a good case. So as he was taking photographs in this area, he came aware of a buzzing sound, a resonating sound pervading the whole. What the hell is that? What's that sound? And he initially thought it was those electricity pylons that you get. You know, the resonance, if you stand underneath, you hear this buzz. It's maybe that. And then it got louder and louder, and then suddenly, this is just another photograph he took. of the area. And he said, what is that? And he turned round and he was confronted by a weird craft in the sky. And this is a photograph that he took. He's very, very annoyed at this photograph. Why? Because he says, Malcolm, just prior to me taking the photograph, it was like a top hat. That top bit was much, much taller, and it actually compressed it. It depressed into the main body of the object. It tilted and it shot off into the sky and was gone in seconds. And he says, whilst he was doing that, it was encased in what Jenny Randall's calls the Oz factor. That's like a Victorian bell jar just put on the top of you, and you can't hear anything. And you couldn't hear the rumble of the traffic. You couldn't hear any bird song, which he had prior to that. It was just him and this object. And by the next shot, it was just a tiny thing. It was not one of these newfangled cameras. It was one of these old cameras. So it was wind on, and it was just a wee dot in the sky at the time he did it. And that's it there. Right, I'm going to really quickly go through some of this, and I want to finish on a major case. So that's just a lot of newspaper stuff. It made a lot of press, not only in the UK but also all over the world. I won't go into just now. I want to finish it. They sent the proofs over to Jeff Stanio over in America, and he says, Malcolm, yeah, it's definitely not a discus, it's not a hubcap, it's not anything else, it's in excess of 30 feet. And yeah, so you've got yourself a UFO. But what does that mean, UFO? We know what it means, but is it extraterrestrial, is it just military or what? So he was annoyed that he never got the top part of that, but there we go. Oh yeah, it's, Rex Heflin, it's just a similar photograph. We all know about the Rex Heflin photograph from the 1960s, was it? Very, very similar to what my Scottish witness saw. Very similar, that's exactly how he saw it. And when you put the two of them, we'll go close to that. This is what he saw, and when you put the two of them side by side, the only difference being that it's telescoped into the main body of the craft, but it's very similar to what Rex Heflin photographed back in the day. Right, I'm going to finish you on this one. It's Scotland's most controversial alien entity case, and then when the gentleman comes back, pull me off the stage, because I'll talk forever. And I'm aware that Alan Foster, I'm not really running into you, son. So, very quickly, let's finish on this one. It is a controversial case. It kicked up a storm in Scotland, it probably still has. And it's called the Fife incident. Anybody who has not heard of this, put your hands up, not heard of it. Thank God, nearly the whole room. Have I got time to run through this? Let's go. Here we go. Yeah, to all intents and purposes, it really is staggering. What you're about to hear, you'll go, Malcolm, I don't believe a word yet. I do. Let's take a look to tell you all. Okay, so occurred back in near Newton and Falkland in Fife back in September 23rd, 1996. And again, when we look at a map of Scotland, again it's in the central belt. Guys, just give me, whisk me off.
Yeah, I'll give you sign for 10.
Yeah, okay. And so you've got St Andrews there, Cooper. So it's in the central belt, but not necessarily in the Bonnybridge area. It's more towards more in the Fife region. Occurred to Mary Morrison, Jane, Peter, and Susan. So you've got four witnesses here of different age groups. And this is the area in question. Just like the A70 case, it's farmland, it's fields, it's farmland, it's little houses dotted here and there, you know. And so there's nothing special. Does a location make something special? Is it the location? Is it the people? Is it the town? Is it ley lines? Is it this? Is it that? We could speculate all day. So you've got fields on either side, and this is one of the wee roads that the car went down, which will come to why you went down that little road in a minute. And again, this is that wee road for a different angle, and it's these group of trees. That is the main thing that you guys have to look at. These trees here, because this is where all the activity was ongoing. And the car stopped at this little dike, this little stone dike, and a lot of activity was occurring in the field, which we're now going to. So this is what we know about the incident. Like this. The family and friends had run out of coffee, and they jumped in the car to this little village called Fruki, which is about 5 miles along the road. And as they were travelling there to get this jar of coffee, they became aware of this, initially a big bright white light hovering off the left on above the fields. They went, do they live in this area? They know planes and aircraft, and what the hell is this light? So they looked at this light, and then suddenly it changed from a bright spherical white light to a triangular shaped craft with 3 red lights at each apex in the corner. And whoa, what on earth is this? And then suddenly it just dropped down 2 columns of white light. 2 columns of light dropped down and started parading around the roadside. So they stopped the car, they got out and they looked at this, and then she jumped back in the car again and started flashing the car headlights at it. And at that point it flashed these lights even more, and then like did this. It just shot off into the sky and was gone. So they went to the little shop of Fuki and they got a jar of coffee, and on the way back the same or similar object was there again, and it did this. It came up, rose up from the distance and shot up straight into the sky. And young Peter, who was in the car, he was crying so loudly because he was terrified that this was. They went back to their house and they explained to Jane's sceptical daughter Susan, "You'll never believe what we just saw." What did you see? What did this silly UFO thing? No, you didn't. Come out, come out. So they went out and they went down this little road, and this is how they looked in the dark. They went down this little road and they stopped the car at this bend to observe these strange lights. Now they live in this area, and they saw hundreds and hundreds of tiny pinpricks of white light dancing and moving all around the farmer's field. They weren't up in the sky, they weren't stars or anything, they were about 200 feet up, hundreds of them. And then suddenly they saw this squash ball of orange light above the Falkland Hill, which is in the locality, crackling, like electricity crackling all the time. What's going on? This bizarre case. And then suddenly they saw this. These columns of green, red and blue lights were coming up from the forest all over, and they just couldn't believe what they were looking at. They've never seen anything like this in this area before. And it was like those Second World War searchlights you used to get in London to illuminate the bellies of the German bombers as they flew over London. And they were similar like that, only coloured, and it was very bizarre. And then they saw this blue light pervading in front of the trees. How long have we got there, Gary?
You've got about 12 minutes.
12 minutes, okay. And so like I say, this blue mist, this is it in the daylight, was seen in front of these trees. Now all these starry sky, sparkle lights in the sky, the orange ball above Falkland Hill, the lights coming up from there, the blue light there, it's getting bizarre. It even got more crazy. This is why I said at the start, this is a very peculiar, bizarre case. They claim that they saw dozens upon dozens of small grey creatures. Now I couldn't get the grey on the PowerPoint, so bear with me on that one. And there was also this ball of light in the field and these tall creatures there, as if they were in charge somehow. They're looking at, and all these wee guys were doing, they were carrying and lifting boxes or cylinders towards an area in the forest behind them. They were carrying and lifting these boxes. It all sounds bizarre, very, it's crazy. And they're looking at this and going, what's going on? They just couldn't believe it. This is an area in question, so this is obviously a Google Earth map. This is the woods here, and this is the area. So they've parked the car there, it's all happening in there, lights are coming up, the starry lights all over the place there. And they came down from there and moved up, eventually just parked the car there. So they're absolutely facing this area in question. And you know, can you imagine, ladies and gentlemen, seeing something of this nature? It's like something into a movie, isn't it? To see all these columns of light coming up from the forest, this blue light and these small creatures. And then it got even more bizarre, because what they claimed then was that they saw coming across in these bubbles, cocoon-like bubbles across this field, these small creatures inside these bubbles, about 6 to 7 feet tall. And so this is how probably they came along. So one at a time they came across from there, containing all these little creatures inside these bubble-like effects. They're parked, as I say, just there. And I'm going to finish up in a couple of minutes. Here we go. So this is again as I talk to you, coming down, looking down at it. with these bubbles moving from the blue light across the farmer's field towards the direction of the car. Whoa, come on, what's going on here? And then Susan, who was in the car, cried out that there was a small grey creature standing outside the car. That's not their car, it's a recreation again. And he was standing there, grinning at it, and then all these cocoon lights, these bubbles appearing in the field as well. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an extensive case. I'm running out of time just now because there's so much more involved in this case. Paranormal events, poltergeist events in the family home, the triangular-shaped craft appearing above their house, etc. It goes on and it goes on and it goes on and it goes on. So all I want you lovely people to do is just recognise the fact that yes, whilst something looks mysterious and bizarre and strange, don't throw it away. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because we should never laugh at anything because it sounds stupid and silly. Because we laughed at Marconi, we laughed at John Logie Baird, we laughed at the Wright brothers, oh that thing will never fly, oh God, it has flown, I'm sorry. So we shouldn't laugh at things just because they look bizarre. And this whole world of the paranormal and ufology is totally bizarre, and that's why myself and Alan and Gary and that, we love this subject. It's because it's so crazy. All I would like to leave you with is this thought, is just keep your mind open. Keep your mind open, keep searching, keep checking. Not everything's as cut as dried. There's a lot of nonsense out there, absolutely. But keep searching and keep your mind open, because it's just a wonderful, wonderful subject. Oh, just before I do go, sorry, if anybody wants to come to Scotland, we're organising a conference in Glasgow University in June. There's flyers dotted around the room. I'm speaking about poltergeist this time. Do come along to that. I have tickets with me today. Sorry guys, this will be plugged in. I have tickets with me today for £10. Anybody wants a ticket for the Glasgow conference, tickets available from me today. All it leaves me to do is just to leave you in the hands of this young fella here, Gary Heseltine, and may I thank each and every one of you for your presence here today.
Excellent presentation as ever. Excellent graphics in that PowerPoint. Just before you shoot off, because actually I can keep you here for another 5 minutes, because it's finished 5 minutes early. You're not getting a 5-minute break, extra. Well, you can maybe get a couple of minutes. Right, a couple of things to say. We mentioned about subscribing to the magazine. Who will put your hand up if you want to subscribe? Because we're getting late in the afternoon. If you do, I will give you a form so you can subscribe. Put your hand up if you want to subscribe. Okay, so fill this in.